As a grumpy Eastern European, I was brought in to play as a pessimist this morning, so bear with me. I've always been fascinated with how technology could actually reshape and open up authoritarian societies like ours. So, on graduating college and feeling very idealistic, I decided to join an NGO which actually was using new media to promote democracy and media reform in much of the former Soviet Union. However, to my surprise, I discovered that dictatorships do not crumble so easily. In fact, some of them actually survived the internet challenge, and some got even more repressive. Right? So this is when I ran out of my idealism, decided to quit my NGO job, and actually study how the internet could impede democratization. The cyber-utopians say, much like fax machines and Xerox machines did in the 80s, blogs and social networks have radically transformed the economics of protest. So people would inevitably rebel. Right? So to put it very simply, the assumption so far has been that if you give people enough connectivity, if you give them enough devices, democracy would inevitably follow. Right? And to tell you the truth, I never really bought into that argument. In part because I never saw 3 American presidents agree on anything else in the past. We assume that every single Iranian or Chinese who happens to have and love his iPod will also love liberal democracy. We should be dropping iPods, not bombs. The bigger problem with this logic is that it confuses the intended versus the actual uses of technology. Coming back to the internet, what you could actually see is that authoritarian governments have mastered the use of cyberspace for propaganda purposes, right? And they're building what I call the spinternet, the combination of spin on the one hand and internet on the other. So governments from Russia to China to Iran actually hiring, training, and paying bloggers in order to leave ideological comments and create a lot of ideological blog posts to comment on sensitive political issues, right? So you may wonder, why on earth are they doing it? Why are they engaging with cyberspace? Well, my theory is that it's happening because censorship actually is less effective than we think it is in many of those places, right? The moment you put something critical on a blog, right, even if you manage to ban it immediately, it would still spread around thousands and thousands of other blogs, right? So the more you block it, the more it emboldens people to actually avoid the censorship and thus, win in this cat and mouse game. Right? So the only way to control this message is actually to try to spin it and accuse anyone who's written something critical of being, for example, a CIA agent. And this is what political scientists call authoritarian deliberation. Right? And it happens when governments actually reaching out to their critics and letting them engage with each other online. Right? We tend to think that somehow this is going to harm these dictatorships, but in many cases, it only strengthens them. We all heard about the Twitter revolution that happened there, right? But if you look close enough, you'll actually see that many of the networks and blogs and Twitter and Facebook were actually operational, right? They may have become slower, but activists could still access it. And I actually argue that having access to them is actually great for many authoritarian states, right? And it's great simply because they can gather open source intelligence. Right? In the past, it would take you weeks, if not months, to identify how Iranian activists connect to each other. Now you actually know how they connect to each other by looking at the Facebook page. I mean, KGB, and not just KGB, used to torture in order to actually get this data. Now it's all available online. We often hear about cyber activism, how people are getting more active because of the internet. We rarely hear about cyber-hedonism, for example, right? How people are becoming passive. Why? Because we somehow assume that the internet is going to be the catalyst of change that will push young people into the streets, while in fact it may actually be the new opium for the masses, which will keep the same people in their rooms downloading pornography. That's not an option that we have considered too strongly. So for every digital renegade that's revolting in the streets of Tehran, there may as well be 2 digital captives who are actually rebelling only in the World of Warcraft. And this is realistic, and there is nothing wrong about it because the internet has greatly empowered many of these young people, and it plays a completely different social role for them. If you look at some of the surveys on how the young people actually benefit from the internet, you'll see that the number of teenagers in China, for example, for whom the internet actually broadened their sex life is 3 times more than in the United States. So it does play a social role. However, it may not necessarily lead to political engagement. Right? So the way I tend to think of it is like a hierarchy of cyber needs in space, a total rip-off from Abraham Maslow. But the point here is that when you get the remote Russian village online, what will get people to the internet is not going to be reported on Human Rights Watch. It's going to be pornography, Sex and the City, or maybe watching funny videos of cats. Right? So this is something we have to recognize. So what should we do about it? Well, I say we have to stop thinking about the number of iPods per capita and instead start thinking about ways in which we can empower intellectuals, dissidents, NGOs, and other members of civil society. Because given what has been happening up till now with the internet and authoritarian deliberation, there's a great chance that those voices will not be heard. So I think we should shut off our cyber-utopian assumptions and actually start doing something about it. Thank you.